Hashimoto's is not your fault. I want you to hear me loud and clear. If you turn off this podcast in the next 10 seconds, I want you to know Hashimoto's is not your fault. Getting sick, having an autoimmune condition is not your fault. Are there things that you might have done that increased your susceptibility? Are there things that you have done or been exposed to that could have been triggers and root causes? Yes. But is it your fault? No. I want you to know that it is not your fault. Today's episode is brought to you by a combination of different things: karma, manifesting, faith healing, and Job's friends. All of those things have come up within the last little while. And my heart was so heavy to bring you this message that Hashimoto's is not your fault. Before I tell you all of the backstory and what you can do and what you need to know, I want to welcome you to the Health with Hashimoto's podcast. My name is Esther. I am a registered nurse. I have Hashimoto's, and it was through my struggles to figure out what was going on and then to understand Hashimoto's, which is so confusing. That is why I started this podcast, so that you do not have to struggle so much. I started the podcast and then I launched an app. In the app, you will find a community of people who are all supporting you, where you can find answers and people who have been there, who they know what you're going through. And then also in the app, I have a couple courses. I have Hashimoto's Decoded. In that free mini course, which will take you about an hour to binge, it is all about what causes Hashimoto's, and then it helps you figure out why you might have Hashimoto's. The second course I have for you is the Holistic Hashimoto's course, and that takes you by the hand to really figure out what your next steps are so that you can address what's going on in your life. And nowhere in any of my things do I ever want you to feel shame or guilt or like this is your fault. So like I said, there was like 4 different things, maybe more, that all came together to make me realize I needed to do this episode. One of them is one of my favorite podcasts. It is called 40 Minutes in the Old Testament, and 2 scholars go through every single word in the Old Testament and help you understand it. Well, they've been going through the book of Job. And if you know anything about the book of Job, you know that the person, Job, was very godly. He had not done anything wrong, and he had a ton of bad things happen to him. He lost his family, he lost his possessions, he lost his health. He lost just about everything. The only thing he had was his life, and also his wife, who was like just not good for him. She told him to curse God and die, in fact. So he was like this godly character, this godly person, and his friends come alongside him and start accusing him of bringing this illness on himself. They made it his fault. They wanted to figure out, what did he do to bring on this illness, this suffering? And the answer was nothing. He did not do anything to, quote, deserve it. He did not do anything to bring it on himself. It was not his fault. So I've been listening to that podcast, and then I was reading a book. I'm always reading books. In this book, there was a sister. There's a lot of cancer in this book. In fact, it is about how they discovered the genetic component of cancer. And one of the sisters in this book presented her best face. Like, she was always positive. She was never negative. She always wanted everybody to know that she believed that she was going to get better, that she was believing so hard, that she was doing all the things that she could. And yet in her journal after she died, they found out that she was scared and that she thought that she might die. And I got so both sad and angry for her. She was deluded by a whole group of people who say that you have to manifest, that you have to believe a certain way. And if you let any negative thoughts come in, then you're going to sabotage your success or your healing. There is an entire, philosophy that you have to do the work. And if you don't do the right work, or if you don't do it well enough, that your health will suffer, that it will be your fault if you die, or it'll be your fault if you got sick. Now, a lot of times they're not like blatant. They don't come out and say it's your fault. But what they do imply is that you're not manifesting hard enough, or you're not believing hard enough, or you have too much negativity, or you're not doing X, Y, and Z. They make it your fault. It is not your fault that you have cancer. It is not your fault that you have Hashimoto's. It is not your fault that you are sick. Well, okay. So if your kid coughs in, I don't know, in their hand, and then you walk up to your kid's hand and you lick it, all right, it's your fault that you got sick. But that's like really dramatic, right? Most of us are not doing things that would actively make us sick. It's just part of being human on this earth where there is sin, disease, and death. Those are part of our human experience. Not a good part, but they are a part. And it is not your fault that you have Hashimoto's. By the way, the name of that book is called Fatal Inheritance. It is an interesting book. It's by Lawrence Ingrassia. I listened to the audio and yeah, check it out. I think it's out now. I listened to it on a preview, but it's an interesting book all about, like I said, the genetic component of cancer and how they discover that. So I talked about Job and I talked about manifesting. The next thing that came up, it was a huge red flag, was when one of my kids wanted to go with one of his friends to their youth group. So I looked up that church. It's not a church that I was familiar with. I wanted to know what they believed. Well, I found on their website that they have like a faith healing ministry. I did not find any credentials. I did not find that they are certified therapists. They have the actual training. Maybe they do. They just don't have it on their site. But I did find a lot of that, the insinuation that if you are right spiritually, then you will be right physically. And that is not true. Is there a connection? Yes, there is. And I did a whole episode on spiritual stress a while ago, and I talked about that. But the thing is, you are a whole person: body, mind, spirit, diet, environment. If you think of a flower, look at the logo on the cover art of this episode. If you think of a flower, the spiritual component is one petal. It is not the whole thing. The physical component is one petal. It is not the whole thing. Your emotional or your mental health is one petal. It is not the whole thing. You are a whole person. So can you have fantastic spiritual health? You are at peace. You are living in love. You know where you are destined eternally. You are in relationship with Jesus. You have repented for your sins. Like, you're resisting temptation. Like, you're doing all the things, which side note, like, all you have to do is confess and believe. Like, that if you want to have eternal life, if you want to have life with Jesus, confess your sins and believe that he is Lord, and you'll be forgiven and you will have life. But if you're doing all the things, it does not guarantee physical health. It does not guarantee mental health. If you, quote, get right with Jesus, it does not mean that your anxiety and your depression are going to just magically go away. Is there a connection between them? Yes. Yes, there is. But is it do XYZ and get ABC? No, it's not. You are a whole person, and each petal or each thing is its own thing, and yet it interacts with the others. So when I was looking at this church and looking at the things, it was just there were a couple big red flags. Do they believe in Jesus, that he is God, that he is absolutely God? He is also the Son of God. Like, the Trinity, it's really confusing, but if you don't believe in those two things, then your church needs to go back to the basics, and you need to figure out what your church is actually teaching. Are they teaching something that is biblical? Because if they're not teaching that Jesus is fully God and fully man, he is God and the Son of God, if they're not teaching that, they are not teaching you directly from the Bible. Okay, there's my little soapbox. So anyway, this church, it did have some red flags, but they were like presenting Jesus correctly. So of course I let my son go to the youth group, but At the same time, like I noticed the red flags, that red flag of we are going to help you get right physically, or sorry, spiritually, because then you will be right physically. And the corollary is implied. If there's something wrong with you physically, then there must be something wrong with you spiritually. And that is not accurate. Look back to Job. So all three of those things happened, and it like came very front and center of my attention within a week's time. And then there was also another thing, which is private to one of my friends. So I'm not going to talk about it here on the podcast, but it really made me realize that there is so much pressure, whether you are in the church or whether you are in a new age religion or whether you are something else. There is so much pressure to make you think and believe that you are responsible for getting sick. And I want you to know that you are not responsible. It is not your fault that you have Hashimoto's. Now, does your mindset matter? Absolutely, it does. It absolutely matters. When you are living in hope, you have different physical reactions, even at a cellular level, than when you are living in despair. Your mindset does matter. Does that mean that you have to like fake it until you make it, or that you have to push yourself to believe something like that woman who believed or was trying to believe, or at least make everybody believe that she believed that she was going to get better from cancer? You can be honest. You can be honest with yourself. You can be honest with those around you, because actually being in community and having support helps you with your health. It helps every aspect of your health. It helps you have better physical health. It helps you have better mental health. It helps you have better spiritual health. Like we are built for community. And even eating, that dietary component of the whole you and environment, like those things do better in community as well. Community is crucial. So don't hide what's going on, even though you might rather hide what's going on. Maybe, reach out to a couple friends. You don't have to tell the entire world what's going on. You don't have to blast it on Facebook every single time you're having a bad day, but you can do the things that you need to get support, because we want to be supported. So your mindset does matter. Another thing is God can heal your body and your mind. Like God is God. You can be healed. Miracles happen. And also God works through others. He works through doctors. He works through medicine. He works through other practitioners. You can be healed, but it doesn't mean that if you do XYZ, that God is going to say, oh, she just did everything she needs to. So now she earned this. It's not really how it works. Are there instances where God says you need to do the work because you have unhealthy lifestyle habits? Well, yeah, there are times that he does that. And so it's up to you to figure out what is next. But I want you to know that you're doing your best. You're constantly trying to learn and do different things to improve your health. And it is not your fault that you have Hashimoto's. So then I might wonder, are you going to listen to this and think, well, if it's not my fault, then I can do whatever I want? Well, that's not true either. You're still responsible for doing the best you can. But I want to release you of any shame or guilt that you didn't manifest hard enough, or you didn't believe hard enough, or you didn't pray hard enough. It's not your fault that you have Hashimoto's. Like I said earlier, I have a course for you. It is the Holistic Hashimoto's course, and I help you so that you can know what to do for your particular situation. There is no shame. I'm not going to blame you for where you are. What we're going to do is we're going to look at where you are and figure out what's next. A long while back, I heard a phrase that has always stuck with me, and it is this: when you know better, you can do better. We're not blaming or shaming anybody for what they did before they knew better. Now, when my oldest was a preschooler, he was short enough that he's probably a toddler. He would reach up, and when he reached as high as he could touch the top of the stove, but he couldn't see it yet. And we told him, don't touch it. Of course we told him, right? That's our job as parents. We told him. He knew. And we told him over and over, and he would still try to reach. And one time he reached and we didn't whisk him away fast enough or something. And I remember that he got burned. It was I don't even think his fingers blistered, but he felt the heat. Now, was that his fault? Yes, it was. Had we taught him, and did he know better? Yes, he did. Did he decide to do it anyway? Yep. And did he get consequences for it? Yes. From us? No, but from the stove? Yes. It hurt because he did what he knew he was not supposed to do. And that is life too. That is health. There are things that we know that we should do and shouldn't do. And I try not to should on you in this podcast because I don't want to heap more guilt and burden on you. But there are things that we know that when we do this, we feel better. And yet sometimes we don't do that. For example, I know that when I get good sleep, that I feel better, that I have more energy, that I think better. And did I have some kombucha yesterday afternoon, even knowing that it has caffeine in it because it's made from tea, and even knowing that I am super sensitive to caffeine? Why, yes. Yes, I did. And did I pay for it last night by laying in bed, wondering why I couldn't sleep? And then I was like, oh yeah, I had kombucha. I had it at 3 o'clock. And did I have the whole bottle? No, I had a quarter of the bottle, but it still affects me because I'm so sensitive to caffeine. I knew better, and yet I chose to do the wrong thing anyway. And did I have consequences for it? Yes. Yes, I did. And today, do I regret that kombucha? Yes, I do. I wish that I had a little bit more energy because I have a really busy day today and I need to be functioning at 100%. So sometimes, yep, we have the consequences for the choices that we make. And sometimes we do things and they're the wrong choices, and yet we don't know it. And you don't have to carry the shame and the guilt for that. If it was a sin, if you went against what God says, then you can confess and God forgives you. I guess what I'm trying to say is Hashimoto's is not your fault. I said it a whole bunch of times because it's so important that you know that. You are a whole person. Body, mind, spirit, diet, environment, and they all come together to create the whole you. There are things that you do in each one of those little, petals of the flower, and they do impact the others. But it does not mean that you are responsible, that if you are physically sick, it's because you are not spiritually well. There are always things that you can do to improve your health. We can't go back in time and change other things that we have done in the past. We can only do better going forward. And you are doing something just by listening to this podcast. You're learning and you're trying to figure out how to take simple steps going forward to impact your health. So I want you to know Hashimoto's is not your fault. You are a whole person and you can make progress in any of those areas, in any of the 5 petals, and it will impact the whole. But it doesn't mean that if one of those petals is damaged, it's your fault. Obviously, there's a lot of nuance in all of this, but I just want you to know it is not your fault that you have Hashimoto's. All right, now I'm going to end. I want you to come over and download the app. If you have an iPhone, download the Health with Hashimoto's app. If you have an Android, click on the link in the show notes and it will take you to the backdoor way to get to the app because it is not a standalone app in the Google Play Store yet. And join the number 1, the Hashimoto's Decoded free mini course, and then hop into the Holistic Hashimoto's course. Well, I will take you by the hand and help you figure out exactly what to do next so that you can have better health with Hashimoto's. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. Please discuss any concerns and plans with your trusted healthcare professional. If you found this episode helpful, would you please share it with a friend? I will see you next week on the Health with Hashimoto's podcast.